Welcome back to the Green Beans Go channel. It's your host, me. And today we're talking Pat Hoberg, who has been fired from the MLB officially after his involvement in sports betting. The story is a little bit bizarre because it's not the traditional sports betting story like we're used to in the NBA with Jonte Porter kind of fixing games, maybe Terry Rozier, who's on the pipeline of being investigated with selling, as some would say, purposely doing things to make his unders be the winning side of the bet. But Pat Hoberg is in an interesting spot here because his story is so unique. So I was actually notified of this by a comment on my channel 2 days ago. And they said, I thought you would talk about this. Well, by golly, I will. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. So how does this all start? This starts in 2014, almost 10 years ago, where Pat meets individual A, as he is labeled. He's remaining anonymous. He is a poker pro, and they met at a poker tournament. And what ends up happening is, obviously, they hit it off, they become friends, and they start betting together. Hoberg starts betting indirectly through individual A in 2015. This was 10 years ago. It's sort of a, you bet this for me, says Pat, I'll pay you later. That betting continues until 2019. So, individual A was his bookie, so to speak, getting the bets in for him because Hoberg couldn't bet anything at the time because his state was not legal. But in 2019, where Hoberg lives in Iowa, they legalized mobile sports betting. So then what happens, this is where we start to get into some tricky waters. Individual A shares, his poker buddy, shares account info with Hoberg, allowing Hoberg to place bets for individual A when individual A is not in Iowa. So his poker buddy signs up for a sportsbook, and his buddy uses that. But when individual A, his poker buddy, leaves town, Hoberg logs in using the poker player's password and email and places the bets for individual A, his poker buddy. So that's kind of how it was working. That's not anything new necessarily. People do that all the time, and sportsbooks do often flag you for it or limit you for it or outright ban you for it. I had my friend actually was going out of town, and he gave me his login information, and this was way early in the game when I had no idea what these sportsbooks were capable of, and I logged in for him in my state, and then he tried to log in his state, and so it picked up that we were hundreds of miles apart logging in the same account in two different locations, so it locked him completely out of his account. So these sportsbooks can do that kind of thing, just a public service announcement. So from 2020 to 2024, these two individuals, the poker player and the umpire, were using two different sportsbooks. In the report, it's called Sportsbook A and Sportsbook B. For the sake of it, we're just going to call it DraftKings and FanDuel. And if I had to actually bet money on it, I would say that these two were using DraftKings and FanDuel. So what happens? Sportsbook A is created, we'll call it DraftKings, by the poker player and is used for 4 years, 2020 to 2024. Hoberg would log in for the poker player and place bets using his credentials, using the poker buddy's credentials on DraftKings. On Hoberg's devices, now this is not the total sum of the account. This is just the bets that were placed on the umpire's devices for his poker buddy. 417 bets, so about 100 per year, almost $500,000 wagered, and a net of 53,000 to the negative. So this guy was a bit of a square, a rec better. His ROI was under a percent. Is that what that would be? Or more than a percent? I guess a percent would be 48K. So, he was losing. Is that a percent or is that 10%? The point is he was not good. He was not good. He wasn't making money. He wasn't even breaking even. He was down. You guys do the mental math. I'm not doing it right now. But a key piece is that he had no bets on baseball from Hoberg's device. Not saying he didn't bet baseball. We'll talk about the fact that this poker player, poker buddy IA, did indeed bet baseball, but Hoberg did not place any baseball bets for him. So good on him. That is something that will stay consistent throughout the story, and that is a winning recipe for less punishment, as we'll see. This account did bet baseball, but only on his buddy's device. So no foul play there. Now, Sportsbook B, we'll call it FanDuel, was created sometime. There is no official documentation on when, but we can imagine it was between 2020 and 2024. Same thing. Hoberg would log in to his FanDuel account and place bets for his friend. This device was used less. It was 112 bets, 222 with a net of negative 21.6. So again, he's losing 10%. right? Every time. So he's losing is he losing the juice? Is that really what he's doing? 222,000, that's 10%, right? So he's losing 10% of his wager. I don't know. I've had a long day. I should know that. The point is, between two books, he was down almost 60 grand, or almost 70 grand. 75 grand? Almost 75 grand. Yes, that is correct. That's good math, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sounding like an idiot. I'm sorry. I have to go eat in a second. My wife and daughter have already left to go over to our friend's house. So I was busy all day. So I wanted to get this on here. And so I can't edit it. So I'm rolling with it. So I'm sorry that I'm sucking with the mental math. The point is, he lost about 10% of the money that he gambled. And again, no bets on baseball from Hoberg's advice here. This account did bet baseball, but only from his poker buddies' accounts. Now listen, or from his device. Now listen, good for them. They used two accounts. Hopefully they were line shopping. Hopefully they were getting the best line. I would wager, I guess, that they were not. But hey, having two books is certainly better than having one book. So individual A's baseball bets. This is what stands out to me. This is what has me scratching my head. And there are multiple explanations, and I'm not saying that there is any funny business going on, but his poker buddy wagered $213,000 over the course of 4 years on baseball and was positive almost 35 grand. Which means if he had just broken even on baseball, he would have been down over 100 grand, 110 grand over the course of 4 years. He nets 35K on baseball and is still down 75K overall. 213 of the 600, let's see, there's about 500,000, there's 700. Yeah. So, a little less than a third, or a little more than, a little less than a third of the bets, or about a third of the bets were on baseball, and he crushed it. 8 bets totaling 16,000 were on games where Hoberg was involved as an ump or a replay official, and that is an important piece. So this was a head scratcher to me because mathematically, that's crazy. Like if this guy is this sharp at baseball, stop betting other sports. There's no other explanation. If you're down 75K through other sports, but that's in counting baseball. You're up 35K on baseball, and you're still down 75K. Maybe only bet spring and summer. So here are the games that he umped or was involved in, and let's take a look because this is fascinating. In the Giants-Reds, he was the third base ump. He had 3 close calls. All were determined to be correct, but the poker player bet on the Reds. It was a loss. Okay. He was the lead replay in Mets-Cubs. No replays. And the poker player won that game, $1,500. So far we're 2 for 2 in terms of sketchy business with his buddy being involved. Home plate ump, this is big. He reports a 98.89% accuracy, only misses 6 calls the whole game. This is higher than the MLB average. This is higher than his personal average for the season. 6 of his missed calls, 2 helped the Dodgers, 4 hurt the Dodgers. The poker player bets LA and wins $5,200. So he calls nearly a perfect game. And of the 6 calls he missed, 4 went against the bet his friend made, and the friend still won. So I say innocent there. Just looking at the numbers, innocent there. Third base, ump for this game, no close calls. He bets Giants, he wins. And then this game, which I believe was a World Series game in 2021. I could be mistaken. One of these games was the World Series game. He's lead replay. Austin Riley called safe. The play is upheld. It was the correct call. He bets Houston and loses. So in the games where his buddy was umping and reffing, it doesn't look like there's a glaring red flag that says, oh my gosh, he was fixing games. Like he either called it correctly or his calls went against the bet of his buddy. So this is where he messes up. This is Hoberg's error in January of 2024. Hoberg decides to sign up for, we'll call it DraftKings, Sportsbook A, with his own info from the device that he used for his buddy's DraftKings or Sportsbook A account. So now his device is tied to 2 accounts, his buddy's and now his. And so Sportsbook A gets flagged because now two accounts are being accessed from the same device. That's a no-no. And it gets flagged because of the name. And it gets flagged by Sportsbook A so much that they report the activity to the MLB. They're saying, hey, here's this guy who works for you. He's signing up for a sportsbook, but he's been betting on an account from a different name for the last 5 years. Yellow. So what happens? Well, he gets suspended. Okay, they fire him May 31st of 2024. And this is maybe his nail in the coffin. And we're going to talk about this. That's why I put a baseball here. I thought it was fitting with a theme, and it's better than a star. They delete the Telegram app. So what you ask is a Telegram app. It's how they were communicating. It's how two friends were communicating back and forth. They weren't texting about these bets. They weren't DMing about these bets. They were using Telegram, which is, I don't know too much about it, but I can tell you when I hear Telegram, it's usually involved in like scammy things, criminal activity, drug deals, because I don't think, I don't know if it has to do with encryption or save to the cloud or what the technical reason is, but that's where funny business goes down. And that's what they were using. So I get that because he was involved in a professional organization, maybe he was nervous about using his phone, you don't use Telegram unless you are a little concerned about someone finding that info or being able to pull that info back. So once they figure out that they're being fired or investigated, they delete the app, and away goes all of the conversations that have ever existed between Hoberg and his poker buddy about betting. Ugh, that'll make you feel a little something. That'll make you feel a type of way. So Hoberg appeals it, and it's the firing is upheld. He does violate MLB standards, but he does not get in trouble for fixing games because, as I just showed you, the evidence doesn't really lend itself to believing that he was doing things to make his buddy win. His buddy did win, and we'll talk about that. So, in his final statement recently, he takes responsibility. He admits that it was an error in judgment, but he denies betting on baseball, which I believe. He can apply for reinstatement in 2026. So here, I'll talk about this first. What I should have put this at the beginning. Logically, this would make sense to put at the beginning. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. Best ump? ? He's widely regarded as the best umpire in the MLB. He's the only umpire to call a perfect game, and he did it in the 2022 World Series, going 129 of 129 in perfect calls. I am that of a guy who's been critical of refereeing in the NFL and across the board for sports. I think robo-umps are on the way. I think robo-umps are ultimately the best decision. I understand it puts people out of jobs. I understand it takes out an element that has been in the game for a long time. But in terms of the fairness and the equity in the game, we want the game to be called fairly and accurately both ways. And it'd be great if we could have something call the game 129 out of 129 all the time. And that would be the robo-ump. But he does have a really good reputation, which I think helps his case. So here are my fast reactions. I think deleting Telegram is bizarre. Hoberg's defense of it was that he was embarrassed by the fact that he wagered so much money. He was ashamed that he had gambled so much and he had bet so much on certain things, which I want to believe, and I do believe, that he feels that way. But what raises my alerts a little bit. Raises my alerts. Do we say that? Can we start saying that? Yes, my alerts have been raised due to that new information I've gathered. Alert raised, alert raised. Is his buddy an MLB sharp? Or was Hoberg giving him information? And I think information is valuable or should I say more valuable in certain sports than others. An individual in an NBA game can alter the course of the game more so than MLB, in my opinion. That could be a misrepresentation, but I think an MLB game, as far as a player perspective or inside news, I mean, maybe the pitcher's dealing with an injury and he's not going to pitch for so many games, but this guy was just betting money lines, it sounds like. So, I mean, sure, a starting pitcher may not pitch that much, but then they go to the pin and maybe their pin's good. So it's crazy I'll state what I believe. I'll state what could be, and I'll let you guys come to your own conclusions. It's crazy to me that his buddy could be so bad at betting the other major sports, down $75K, across all betting. Really, if he breaks even on baseball, he's down to over six figures. But he's up 35K in baseball. And I get that some people may understand games better than other games. Right? I'm a better NFL bettor than I am an NBA bettor, just because I understand the game more. Sure. But that coupled with deleting Telegram makes me wonder if Hoberg was not betting on games. I believe him there, and there's proof there. It's never on his phone. But it makes me wonder, was information shared? Hoberg would have potentially more information that could help his friend. And so while Hoberg is not telling a lie when he says, I never bet on games, I'm gonna stand on that ground. I never bet MLB games. But what if that Telegram message said, hey, I got this game tomorrow, or, I'm hearing from these other umps that this is the case? I don't know. I don't know how things work. I'm just making conjectures here. I find it odd that his friend was up so much and down so much on the other sports, and it would lend me to believe that he had an edge, and maybe that edge was information from his ump friend, which would explain why they delete Telegram. Because again, if I am nervous about the amount of money that I've lost or wagered, yeah, maybe deleting Telegram makes sense, but also I have to have the knowledge that it's going to come out based on the reports from FanDuel and DraftKings. So I don't want to conspiracize. I don't want to make up conspiracies about the guy, but that's interesting. It's bizarre. He admits to poor choices, and I think it was a poor choice, but I don't think anything malicious really went on, unless what I just talked about for the last 4 minutes is true, and he gave him some inside information. So here's my final take, and this can kind of go two different ways. If the MLB believes that he is an asset to the organization and he does his job well and he can rise above this reputation and continue to be an asset to the MLB, making the MLB better, more fair, more accurate, I say you reinstate him. Unless you want to set a precedent for no tolerance when it comes to betting. Even if it's just, I place bets for my friend bets on games that I'm in, that I'm not really controlling. At the end of the day, it's determined that he did not fix games or manipulate the outcomes in order to profit. But if the MLB wants to just say, I don't care, his name is in a sentence with betting, and therefore he will not ump again, I can't blame them, because we are so new to this, and we have to, we've already seen it in the NBA, we've seen it in college, we've seen questionable things in the NFL. If they believe that a total, axe throat chop of the guy is what is needed to keep the integrity of the game for the rest of the time, kind of send a message that you can't even be involved, then okay, don't reinstate him. That's a question for the MLB, not for me. So, interesting thing, and I fear that this could be a common video series. We're going to look back. It's 2025. We're going to look back in 2028, and I hope I'm still making videos, and I hope my videos, I'm reaching a bigger community by then, and the like. But I think in 2028 we could sit down here and talk about betting scandals in sports over the last 3 years, and I think it's only going to get worse. I don't know how you fix it. The athletes are either going to get better, the people involved are either going to get better at hiding it, or we're just going to get story after story. I believe it's just too easy. People are too greedy. The human nature is too curious about biting from the apple, opening the Pandora's box. So I'll be on it if we have it. Take care. I love you, and we'll see you soon.